For the next few moments, I want to talk about the different kinds of pronouns that Greek has. I'm saying for the sake of instruction that there are 9 different kinds of pronouns. It's probably not really 9. It's probably more like 7 with a couple of variations on one of them. But for the sake of clarity, let's say that there are 9 different pronouns in Greek. Now, unfortunately, in the interlinear that has the analytical that Zondervan puts out, the Greek and English Interlinear New Testament, in multiple versions by Mounts and Mounts. It's a great tool. It has an interlinear. It tells you the Strong's number. It has the Strong's dictionary in the back. And then it gives you analytical information that just parses the word for you. It's a very useful tool. It's probably least helpful when it comes to the pronouns, because it doesn't really distinguish between the different uses of pronoun. Of course, the translation clues you in to what kind of pronoun it is. Even if you didn't know what these different kinds of pronouns were, you would soon get the sense that they're, what they mean. So the purpose of this video is basically to classify the different uses of pronouns, so that when you see the code is R in this analytical interlinear. When you see R under a word, that means that it's a pronoun, and it doesn't distinguish the kind. But if I tell you what the different kinds of pronoun are, then hopefully that will begin to make sense. You'll say, oh, I see, it's this kind of pronoun here, and the translation fits. Oh, it's this kind of pronoun here, and the translation fits. Well, here are the 9 different types of Greek pronoun. First, the most common type of pronoun in any language, I think, is probably the personal pronoun. Of course, some languages have more of these than others, but all languages assume this sort of reference. He, she, it, they, I, we, you, and you plural, for example. By the way, a pronoun is a word that stands in place of a noun. If we had to say Ken Skank every time we were talking about Ken Skank, it would get rather long and convoluted. But if I can say he, him, to him, of him, for him, it just makes language a lot easier. And so the most common type of pronoun in Greek, or in English for that matter, is the personal pronoun. Another kind of pronoun that's very common is the demonstrative pronoun. This, that, these, those. This and these are the near demonstratives because we use them when we're talking about something in close proximity to me. This book, these people. If I say that or those, then I may be talking about something across the room, the far demonstrative, that book, those people. It's more of a distance involved. But the demonstrative pronouns are, again, something that is fairly familiar to English speakers. The reflexive pronoun is when a pronoun refers back to the subject. He hit the ball, he hit it himself, or he hit himself, or she gave it to herself, and so forth. This kind of use of the pronoun refers back to the subject, and therefore is never in the nominative case. It's never in the subject case. Reciprocal pronoun is really just one word. Basically, if you learn the vocabulary, you should be okay. It's always in the plural because one another, there's always more than one person involved. It only appears in 3 forms even in Greek: the genitive plural, dative plural, and accusative plural. So this is a problem of one another. No, that's not a good sentence, but of one another would be one translation. If it's genitive, give it to one another, that would be dative, and then love one another would be accusative. So the reciprocal pronoun, I don't have another slide on it. It's just basically the word allelon. The interrogative pronoun, who done it? Which is this? What are you talking about? Why? Those are all interrogative pronouns. Very closely related in Greek is what we call the indefinite pronoun. Someone, something, certain ones. Very similar word, as we'll see. The relative pronoun introduces a relative clause. This is the man who I saw yesterday, or this is the book that I was telling you about. We have in American English shifted away from using which, the book which I love. We don't say it that way anymore. We've gone to using that in American English for the relative pronoun, and hardly ever using which. But again, very common. Then these last two are actually the same word as the personal pronoun, but used in a different way. And so used in a certain way that I'm going to tell you about, instead of it meaning him, it can mean himself. Similarly, when used in a certain way, it can mean same. And we don't ask questions about these things, we just memorize them. Or because language does what language does. Okay, so that's an overview. Those are the 9 different uses of a pronoun. Unfortunately, in Mounts, they're all coded as R. And so if you know that these are the categories, then you can see, oh, this is this kind of an R, and this is that kind of an R. So as long as you know the R, there are some of them, the personal and the reflexive, Mounts puts a 1, 2, or 3 at the end for first person, second person, or third person. But other than that, it's all R. So let's get into the pronouns. Personal pronouns. So these are the first person personal pronouns, and Mounts is going to put an R there to tell you that it's a pronoun. This is nominative singular, genitive singular, dative singular, accusative singular, and in keeping with the genitive, this one has an of pop out of it. Of me. Often it's translated with my in front of it, in front of the word it goes with. Moi is usually translated to me or for me. Notice the one. The one tells you that it's first person. I am the first person, or in the plural, we are the first person. So these are down here. If you were taking a traditional course, you would have to memorize all these. But you don't have to do that for this course. You just have to be able to follow the code. So it's a pronoun. This is nominative plural, first person. And again, it's going the Mounts, the interlinear is going to have the translation. So this video is more about understanding what it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you that it's I or me or of us, and so forth. And so the purpose of this video is not that you can reproduce the translation, but that when you see the translation in the interlinear, you understand what's going on. So those are all the first person personal pronouns, the one that have to do with I in the singular or we in the plural. Now if I'm talking about someone, or I'm sorry, if I'm talking to someone, talking to you, you or y'all are the second person personal pronoun. So there are the singulars. They look quite different, although they don't. They have similar endings to the M words of the me. This is S words. Notice the two for second person, nominative singular, genitive singular, and so forth. And then the plurals look a little bit like the plurals of the first person, except the you has a U in front of it, whereas the we had an eta at the front. But again, notice that these are second person. You don't have to memorize these in this course. In a traditional course you would, but the interlinear is going to tell you all this stuff. Finally, there's the third person. That's the he, she, it, they part. And here's what it looks like. The 3 stands for third person. This is nominative singular masculine. You'll notice that in the first and second person, Greek doesn't have a separate pronoun for different genders, but in the third person it does. So that's this is he, and it will take feminine endings if it were talking about she. Here are the plurals. Again, third person plural. So anyway, the reason why it's they themselves and he himself is because when autos is in the nominative case, it selfifies the subject. It adds a self to the subject, he himself, when it's in the nominative. That's what I have a slide coming. That's what I've called the intensive pronoun. It's really not a different pronoun. It's a different use of this word, autos. So let's talk about autos. Again, one of the things that can confuse Greek students, traditional and now Greek for ministry students, is the three basic uses of autos. The first one is easy. It can be used as a personal pronoun to say him, her, them, and so forth. But it can also do what I was just saying. That is, it can intensify, selfify the subject. This is what we might call the use of autos as an intensive pronoun. And Mounce isn't going to have any nomenclature for this, but when you see a translation like himself, you'll understand, oh, that's the intensive use of autos going on. So, because the verb tells you that the subject is a he, she, it, or they, you don't actually need a personal pronoun. And that goes not just for the he personal pronoun, but for the you personal pronoun su, for the I, ego, the ego. We don't need that because the verb tells you that the subject is an I, or a you, or a he, or a she. So when the nominative of any personal pronoun is present, it tends to emphasize that pronoun. Let me give you an example from the Sermon on the Mount. You have heard it said of old, if a man wishes, let him divorce his wife. But I say to you. The form that Jesus used here, first, de is post-positive. It's a conjunction that never comes on time. So you have to pull that out and put it first, as I did here in the translation. But I, ego, lego, I say to you. There's the personal pronoun. But notice that you don't actually need I here, because lego means I say all by itself. Remember that omega ending means first person singular all by itself. So why does Jesus, and of course this is a Greek translation, so it's Matthew interpreting Jesus, why does Matthew put the I here? It's for emphasis and to bring out the contrast. You've heard it said, but I say to you. You could even translate it, I myself say to you, if you wanted. I put I in italics. If you were reading this in worship, you would want to emphasize it. But I say to you, ego de lego humin, maybe is how they might have said it in Greek. So whenever you have a personal pronoun in the nominative case, it is emphasizing the subject. Now, just to go even a little bit beyond the pale, this is from Philippians, where Paul says that he hopes that even I myself might quickly come to you. He's sending Timothy ahead, but I hope that I myself will quickly come. Here, autos, now the beginning student will often get this wrong. Now, thankfully, you have the interlinear, so it's already got it right for you. But notice that the verb here is, it's a verb, it is future, middle, which in this case you can completely ignore. It's indicative, it's first person singular, so it's I will come. Now here's the deal. No matter what words are over here, this has to mean I will come. But because in English the word order dominates, beginning students will consistently translate this, he will come. Now, there's an adverb. I put it in because we're doing adverbs at this lesson this week as well. This quickly. It's not he quickly will come, but it's I myself quickly will come. Autos here is not functioning as a personal pronoun, but because it's in the nominative case, it is functioning as an intensifier, as a selfifier of the subject. The subject is I, so I myself will come quickly. So whenever autos is in the nominative case, or whenever a personal pronoun is in the nominative case, it intensifies the subject. That's the way you should think about it. So if you see a myself, or yourself, or a itself, or whatever, if you see that there and you're thinking, I don't understand that, because that's autos. And of course, all that Mounce will give you is an R, telling it's a pronoun, and a 3 at the end, I think. I guess he'll do that for intensives. Maybe he won't. Actually, he didn't here. Now, this is taken straight from Nouns. So he didn't. The fact that he didn't put a 3 here is a clue that autos is being used in some other way other than as a personal pronoun. But you'll know, if you see the self there, you'll know that, oh, this is the other, one of those other uses of autos. Okay, and then the third one is what we might call the identical pronoun. Again, this is not really another pronoun. This is autos being used in a different way. When autos has an article on it, when it has the word the in front of it, it means same. So here's a famous verse from Hebrews 13. Jesus Christ, yesterday and today the same. Now, you might initially think, if you knew that autos can mean he, and that's supposed to be a smooth breathing mark, sorry. You might have thought to yourself, Jesus Christ, yesterday and today the he. No, when autos has the word the in front of it, it means same. Again, just another thing to fill your brain with. And of course, the interlinear will have same there. So the purpose isn't so much for this course for you to know that it means same as to not be surprised when you see same as the translation in the interlinear. So those are the 3 uses of autos. Almost always causes problems for traditional Greek students, but hopefully for you it'll be just a matter of you thinking, oh, autos is being used in one of those other ways here. Okay, demonstrative pronouns. The only thing that is a little tricky here is that the demonstrative pronoun in Greek, the word the will almost always, if not always, come on the noun that it goes with. And it'll come in between, say, the word this and the word person or man. So it's and it's genitive here. So of this, the man, you're not going to translate that into English like that. You're just going to say of this person, of this man. And anthropos, again, is a generic person, not a human. It's not male necessarily. The words for this, I just wanted to show you, and that, just show you what they look like. Some of the nominative forms, the masculine nominative form and the feminine nominative form, look like other things. Doesn't this look quite a bit like the personal pronoun autos that I've had earlier in this video? It does. Thankfully, again, since this is a tools course, you don't have to be able to tell on your own that this is the demonstrative, because mounts and mounts are going to have this, the word this or these underneath it. And so I'm only showing you this so that you won't be surprised. You don't have to come up with it on your own. The word for that is going to look something like this. It doesn't look like anything that you would confuse it with, so it's pretty simple. Except, of course, that in mounts you're just going to get an R to tell you that it's a pronoun, I believe. Okay, but those are demonstrative pronouns for this and that, these and those. The interrogative and indefinite pronouns have generally accents are completely pointless in terms of meaning in the Greek New Testament. In terms of pronunciation, you can use the accents to decide where to put the stress on a word, but most of the time accents are really not important. However, when it comes to telling the difference between whether the word tis means who or whether the word tis means someone, the accent is what makes the difference. Again, you're using an interlinear, so Mounts has already told you which one it is. But I'm telling you so that you're not surprised when you come across it. Again, the code just says R, but this is a different kind of pronoun. Either the interrogative pronoun if it has a accent on it, or the indefinite pronoun if it doesn't. Okay? Again, this might be an overwhelming video if you had to memorize all these different forms. All I'm doing is you're not actually pitching, or you're not actually catching. What you're doing is you're watching ESPN or ES Greek N. And so what I'm trying to do in this vidcast is not teach you to recognize these, but to prepare you so that you're not surprised when you see that there's an awful lot of different ways that things that mounts and mounts tell you are pronouns there are an awful lot of different ways that they're used, even though they all have "are" for pronoun. Okay, the relative pronoun. This is the who or that kind of clause. So the man who came here yesterday, the subject about which I was speaking, the woman to whom I gave the ring. What I've done in these examples here, the case that the relative pronoun goes on depends on how it's used in its own clause. So you'll often find different cases being used for the relative. This shouldn't be of any problem to you in interpretation. It's not going to be something that's going to change your interpretation. But if you see things like of which or to whom, if you see those sorts of things, or the person whom you see with him, I've tried to mimic the cases. So this would be a relative pronoun in the nominative. This might be a relative pronoun in the genitive. This might be a relative pronoun in the dative. This might be a relative pronoun in the accusative. Most of the time, especially in the interlinear, it won't matter at all. But you will see a little variety in the way the relative pronoun is translated depending on the case in which the relative pronoun is. Again, the rules are that it usually is going to go in whatever case it's functioning in its own clause. There are some exceptions of peer pressure. You see, relative pronouns always point back to a word. Like if you see here, these are called antecedents. They're what the relative clause is talking about. The man who came here yesterday. All of this is telling you which man you're talking about. It's the who came here yesterday man, or it's the about which I was speaking subject, or it's the to whom I gave the room woman. In fact, the relative clause is really functioning like an adjective, isn't it? To tell us about the man, or the subject, or the woman, or the person. The thing it's telling you about is called the antecedent, the thing that falls before. And so normally a relative pronoun, the case will be decided by how it's functioning in its own world, in its own clause. However, it will agree with its antecedent in gender and number, because that's identity, right? Ken Skank is masculine singular. I hope that never changes. And so a relative pronoun will always agree with its antecedent in gender and number because that's part of its identity. But its case will change. Normally its case is a function of how it's used in its own clause. However, sometimes because of peer pressure it will sneak the case of its antecedent. You don't have to know that because Mounts has done all the work for you in his interlinear. I'm basically trying to explain to try to anticipate some questions you might have as you observe various kinds of words in the Greek interlinear that have an R for pronoun in front of them. Let me give you an example of some relative pronouns from Hebrews 1, 2, and 3. In many and various ways God spoke formerly to the fathers through the prophets, but in these last days he has spoken to us en huio, by a son or through a son. And then we have a series of relative clauses. A son is the antecedent. A son whom, there's a relative pronoun, whom he placed heir of all things. Another relative pronoun, through whom he also made the worlds. Who, being a reflection of his glory and an image of his substance, sat down on the right hand of glory. So you see, these are a series of three relative clauses that are all telling us about the Son. Who is the Son? He is the heir of all things. He is the one through whom God made the worlds. He is the reflection of God's glory, an image of his substance. So that's how relative pronouns work. Finally, the reflexive pronoun. The reflexive pronoun refers back to the subject. So like I said earlier, it's never in the nominative case because it's telling you about the subject. The code is the same as the personal pronoun. It's going to have an R, and it is going to have first person, second person, or third person because I can hit myself, you can hit yourself, and he can hit himself. So Mounts does put 1, 2, 3 after its code, depending on whether it's a first person reflexive, a second person reflexive, or a third person reflexive. Its forms, what do they look like? Well, just so you're going to see the myself or the yourself or the itself there. But just so that you, just so you know, hemau tu is going to be the form for of myself, for example, singular. Se'au tu, forms like that, will be the form for of yourself, singular. And then all the plurals, whether it's myself, or I'm sorry, whether it's ourselves or yourselves or themselves, is going to be some form autos with a he on front of it, he'au tu. That's going to be the third person plural, first, second, third person plural reflexive pronoun. Again, fairly common sense, and the good news is that Mounts is going to translate it for you. So this has been reflexive pronouns.